Now, last week the government decided to press ahead with the high-speed rail link between London and the West Midlands. And while there was celebration in some quarters, for some most affected and likely to lose their homes, it was a very different story. This land has been farmed by Robert Davis's family for a century, but today that could be about to change. Somewhere Robert's future is being redrawn by a man he's never met, a man with a map. It's the morning of the government's decision on HS2, a high-speed rail link between London and Birmingham, and Robert's farm is right in the firing line. He and his wife Jane have invited me to join them as they await the decision. So Robert, we're just a few minutes away from the announcement. How are you feeling about it?
I guess so much has been leaked about what the announcement's going to be that we're sort of dreading the worst or fearing the worst. But, you know, we'll still wait and see what actually happens and what the announcement is. This is the way we find out on television. There's been no contact from the government to us officially at all. Right, this is it. This is the announcement.
Full speed ahead, a new fast rail line between London, the Midlands and eventually the north of England.
As expected, HS2 gets the go-ahead.
Makes you wonder what was the point of the consultation when they totally had their minds to do it. We can look forward to possibly 3 or 4 more years in this house, and that's it.
But suddenly Robert hears the news is even worse than he was expecting. There have been some last-minute changes to the route. No longer does it plough through the couple's home, but through all their other buildings, including those rented by local businesses.
Look, it's going not just through our house on the edge of the properties, but straight through all the farm, all the offices, all the businesses. So now, once all of our tenants and all of the people who use our buildings see this, they'll all be onto us and they'll realise that their time on our farm will be over if this all goes ahead. It's now impacted on 30 to 40 people who work here.
I just feel numb. I just can't believe we just found this out.
Again, on the web.
This way.
And many others are in a similar position. I'm on my way to meet a group of people determined to stop HS2 going ahead. And I know I'm in the right place when I discover their campaign mascot, a big white elephant. Well, it's just after 3 o'clock now, so people living on the HS2 route, including those here in Kenilworth, will have had a few hours to think about the announcement from this morning. What they're after now is some detail, and they're hoping to get that from the Transport Secretary.
We are ready for a new chapter in Britain's transport history, one that's designed to boost our economy and our country, just as the first coming of the railways, all the motorways, did for previous generations. That's why I've given the green light to HS2.
It's deeply disappointing, but at least we know now where we are, and it is the beginning of the next phase in our fight.
I just fail to understand the logic of much of what she's saying, but we've heard it all before, and I think the fight starts here.
Encouraging modal shift from short-haul flights to high-speed rail.
But of course, where there are losers, there are also winners. Many politicians and business leaders are overjoyed that high-speed rail is on its way to the West Midlands.
High-speed rail can put down 22,000 jobs for this region.
It's great news for the region, the people of the region.
Billions of pounds worth of investment into the city and create thousands of jobs.
This is a major announcement underpinning Birmingham's relevance as a global city.
But this isn't a story about the rights and wrongs of HS2. Instead, now it's been approved, I want to look at what it will mean for those living along the route. And I discover some are digging in for a lengthy fight. Michael Doody is the leader of Warwick District Council. He shows me where HS2 will cut through the village of Offchurch. But even now, he believes he can stop it.
We accept that we may well have to take legal action. We hope we don't. We hope sense prevails. But it is likely that we shall have to spend money in the courts to stop this fiasco, and we will do that.
But how convinced are you that people who are paying their council tax want that money spent on a project such as stopping HS2 rather than improving their quality of life as it is today?
I speak to the people in the villages. There is nobody saying no, don't do it. When we had a vote at full council at Warwick District, the whole council voted for us spending the money. And I believe that's how we will go.
But can a legal challenge really make a difference? Well, it didn't here. The construction of the M6 toll road was the last major infrastructure project in the West Midlands. For more than a decade, protesters fought against it, in the courts, at a public inquiry and through direct action, tunnelling under properties to try to stop them being demolished. It delayed the project, but it didn't stop it. Anne Batchelor was among the campaigners who lost out. The cottage she grew up in suddenly had a new neighbour, a 14-lane superhighway. So 10 years on, what advice does she have for those fighting HS2? I brought Robert and Jane Davis to meet her. What are you hoping to get out of this meeting?
To learn about compensation and how easy or difficult it is to get any sort of compensation. We've heard so many bad reports of dealing with the Department of Transport that we fear we're going to hear more bad news today.
To begin with, Anne described what it was like before the road was built.
We looked out on fields with horses in, up to the mount. We've got 14 lanes of motorway. You can hear the traffic starting to build up.
Anne may have lost her fight, but Robert and Jane are keen to find out what lessons they can learn.
What have we got to expect in the next few years?
Misery, I'm afraid. My advice to you is, try and get out. It's as simple as that, because it really takes a chunk of your life out, the quality of your life. And, I can tell you all the things that happened to us, but, it was not a happy experience. For example, we didn't know with this one that they're going to work at night. We also had terrible problems with vibration that made us very, very ill. That really was very, very debilitating. The mud, well, you're just living in squalor.
Did they give you the option of moving out and buying the house, or was that never on the card?
Yes, we looked at that. We thought that was a possibility. But what we were offered, we have a nice little country cottage, and we had an acre of land as well. We couldn't have bought a little semi in the village with the money.
Anne's compensation took 4 years to come through. There are laws governing how much people should receive, and the government has promised to go over and above those for people affected by HS2. But the details won't be announced until the spring. Meanwhile, Anne has one final piece of advice.
Get yourself educated on what it's going to be, and don't be afraid. Be firm, be strong. Yes. If it's wrong, don't sit down. Well, you can cry to start with, and then you've got to fight to get something decent for yourself.
So what do you think about what Anne had to say?
Very, very scary and worrying about the timescales, and particularly about all the problems with while it's being constructed, with the noise and the dust and the fumes and everything. Yeah, we learnt a lot.
It was also interesting how she advised us to just sell up and get out because of the everything that goes on with construction and everything. And I suppose that's, we've got to think of that as well, haven't we? We were thinking, perhaps we can stay and work round it and fight for compensation, but it's worth thinking about the advice that she gave us.
But tied to their land by the legacy of 100 years of family farming, Robert and Jane will find it hard to leave.